I'm here with Joseph Saladino. He's running for the Republican nomination in Staten Island. He's a YouTube star and a prankster, also known as Joey Salads. There's a quote that I remember from 2016, Seth Meyers roasting Trump, saying, well, Trump says he's running as a Republican. Everyone assumed he's running as a joke. Do you get that?
I get that a lot. A lot of people ask me, they come up to me, they're like, is this a joke? Like, is this a joke? I'm like, no, it's not a joke. And a lot of people are like, yes. So a lot of people on Staten Island are very excited to see me run. A lot of Republicans are pretty much excited to see me run because they want someone in there that has a loud voice online, that has the power to create movements. So a lot of people are excited that I'm running, and they don't know, is this a joke? He's a prankster. You know, I don't blame them for thinking that it might possibly be a joke, but it's not a joke. The people on the left are like, please tell me it is a joke.
Not a joke or a social experiment?
Yeah, no, it's not. I mean, I did have an idea, I think it was 2 years ago. I wanted to do a social experiment where we get a Democrat candidate who knows nothing about anything, just an absolute idiot that says the most far left things, and get them elected and make it a social experiment to see how the left reacts to somebody who we're making purposely say crazy, ridiculous things. I had that idea. I was talking to investors, getting the whole thing done. And then out of nowhere, AOC comes around. And I'm like, somebody took my idea. So I had to cancel that. Yeah.
So what made you decide to run?
So I was very fed up. I lived in Staten Island my entire life. I moved to LA to do my work, moving back and forth, lived in the two most democratic cities. I would constantly keep up what's going on in Staten Island, what's going on in New York City. And it was sickening, especially when the whole abortion thing happened and they lit the Empire State Building blood red for murdering babies. And seeing the city and the state constantly act against the interests of Staten Islanders got me to this point. Because Staten Island is a whole different breed of New Yorker. I feel like Staten Islanders are almost the true New Yorkers because we have that New Yorker attitude. I feel like a lot of New York City has been pussified by, socialism. And Staten Island is the last beacon of hope to eventually get New York as a state red. If we're able to start a movement and spread that movement to New York City, once we're eventually able to win New York City, then we will win the state back voting red. And Staten Island is known as the forgotten borough. We're known as a forgotten borough for multiple reasons. The New York City Republican Party right now is kind of weak. They're working on things. They're starting to come back up. And I have the power to bring that mainstream voice, make the Staten Islanders' interest vocal in the mainstream, because we never had something like that before.
So you think your status as a YouTube star will be a help rather than a hindrance, although people attack you for it?
Yeah, people attack me for it. They say, oh, you're just an internet prankster, you do social media. Well, social media is the new wave. Back 40, 50, 60 years ago, you needed to be good on radio. Then you needed to be good on TV. Now you need to be good on social media. This is the new mainstream media form. That's why AOC rose to power. That's why Trump rose to power. You got to use the current mainstream forms in order to get your message out there. And right now, it's social media, and I'm already way ahead of the game when it comes to social media. I get 1 to 2 billion views a year. I have a total of 10 million followers throughout. So it's my job. It's been my job since I was 18. I'm 25 now. So I was born and raised in this medium, and it was my profession. So I'm going to use my skills to get the word out there, to start a movement and get the voice out there.
You mentioned Donald Trump. Would you consider yourself part of the Trump movement?
Oh yeah, I was Trump since I was born. My when I was born, my dad sent a letter to Trump saying, "Hey, I had a son," and he sent an autographed picture back saying, "Best wishes to your son, Joey." And when he started running for president,
Was that a true story?
Yeah.
Wow.
True story. My dad, yeah.
So your dad was a Trump fan before Trump even became political?
Yeah. So this is back in '93. And so when Trump announced that he was going to run for president, At first, I was like, I don't know about this. This sounds like it could be a joke. And my dad's like, you got to hear what he's saying. Like he's saying some truth bombs. And I'm like, all right. I watched a debate with my dad. And I was like, I'm all on board for Trump. I'm on the Trump train. And then that's when my dad was like, hey, look, we got the autographed picture of Trump when you were born. And he showed it to me. I'm like, oh, this is so cool. This is like my prized possession now. So since the first time I heard Trump talk politically was when I was on board.
Any particular parts of his platform that appeal to you, or is it more his general attitude?
It's his attitude, because he has a very Staten Island type attitude. That's how Staten Islanders are. We're very in your face. We're going to tell you how it is. And that's why Staten Islanders gravitated towards him, because they saw a bit of themselves in him, where we're done with the bullshit. We cut the bullshit, get these corrupt mother effers out of here, and just call it all out. He came in, he disrupted their whole established order. So even if you don't like Trump's policies, even if you don't like what he stands for, even if at the point I was like, even if he loses, he still won, because he came in, he disrupted their established order. And whether you agree with his way of doing it or not, he changed politics for the better, because he took the politicians off their high throne of manipulating. And he knocked them down a peg, where he says, what they're saying is bullshit. I mean, obviously the left didn't buy it. They're feeding into the left's bullshit even more. But it knocked at least half the population. It exposed what's going on in politics and government.
Were you an open Trump supporter during the 2016 election? Did you wear the hat and everything?
At first, I was a little bit quiet because I was in LA.
Right. Well, yeah, it's scary to be a Trump supporter in LA.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I wore my hat around LA a few times, and the dirty, nasty looks people give you. Like my girlfriend, she's like, I don't want to go outside if you're going to wear the Trump hat. Just because it's dangerous. You get jumped. People will stab you in LA. It's a lot of gangs out there. So
you've been attacked by Antifa before, right?
Oh, yeah, a few times. I'm on their hit list for sure. I've had somebody, I think it was 2 years ago, somebody actually took the bus from the other side of the city, came all the way to my house and put a note on my door. He filmed it for YouTube. And it was a threatening letter. I was out of town at the time. So by the time I came back, I think I read the letter, but then the next day my car ended up getting towed because I didn't have plates on it. But but I thought that was scary, that this guy knew where I lived, traveled miles to get here just to put a threatening letter on my car, and then recorded it. I could probably share the video with you later.
It happens more and more these days. I mean, Tucker Carlson had the same thing. Leftists showing up at his house all the time. There are constant.
This was before all that stuff was going on too. This was years ago, 2 years ago at least.
The street warfare as well. What do you make of this rising tide of violence and Antifa and the street thuggery? Where do you think it's coming from?
It's definitely coming from the left's manipulation, because whenever you hear people go on their tirades, oh, Trump's racist, Trump's this, Trump's a white supremacist. Obviously, all these Democrat politicians are all feeding into this. They're radicalizing a base. I'm not blaming them for the reason why these radical left-wing people are attacking, because it always comes down to the individual that's doing those attacks. But they go on their own tirades where they're saying Trump's rhetoric is dangerous. But then the next day they say white supremacists are terrorists. Trump and his supporters are white supremacists. So what do you think is going to happen? You can't say one person's radicalizing a base while you're doing the very same thing.
So what other things do you get accused of by the left?
Obviously, the whole rigmarole that they do with everybody. Racist, sexist, bigot, homophobe, I hate transgenders, I hate this, I hate Muslims. The same stuff that they shoot at everybody.
You say to that, what's your response?
It's all BS. I mean, sometimes I can understand why you would say, oh, I'm this, I'm that, because of the controversial, crazy videos that I've done. So sometimes it's like, oh, I'm just asking for them to accuse me of this. Sometimes I get it. Other times it's like, dude, it's just fun and games. It's a prank. It's a joke. Get over it. But they'll take whatever they can get, and they'll run on it as fact, and they'll blow it to epic proportions. They'll remake the context.
So what's your priority? What would be your priority if you became Staten Island's representative?
my biggest priority would be, is because a lot of things that need to get done for Staten Island will be out of my jurisdiction control. So I'll be voting on the federal level. I want to help Staten Island on the more local level. But I think my greatest asset would be my voice and my ability to start movements. Because say Staten Island and New York City wants one thing, and I can't help them on the federal level with a particular thing. I could start those movements to get the local politicians voting in a direction, or to educate the district or the city. This is what this policy would do. Either vote for it or vote against it. It would be able to get the word out there, because the media obviously is very left, so people are getting a very skewed look of the world, and I want to help counteract that and balance it out.
Much like AOC, I mean, she's like a congresswoman, but she's also started a movement.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I hate comparing myself to AOC, but that is the best comparison, where I would be the right-wing's version of AOC that's not completely brain dead, that's not a bartender, it's someone that actually had a successful career before politics.
You're actually suing AOC, is that correct?
Yes.
Explain that lawsuit.
So I'm suing AOC because she blocked me on Twitter. I was working on this lawsuit for about 2-3 months. She blocked me because I saw that Trump was being sued because he blocked some people. So I wanted to see if the standards applied equally, and it came up in the news again that Trump lost the case and had to unblock people. So right when that was popping off, I expedited the lawsuit. I filed it really quickly.
So do you think politicians should actually be able to block people on Twitter, or are you just trying to prove a point?
I'm trying to prove a point. I can care less about what that AOC blocked me. I do think hey, if she wants to block me, she can go for it. If I really do need to see her tweets, I can go on an incognito tab or just sign out. We survived before Twitter as a country. We can survive with Twitter. So I don't really care if she can block me or not. Or a politician can block me or not. But all it comes down to is, this is what the court ruled against Trump. Will the court rule the same way against AOC? Because she is a leftist. That's all it comes down to, is will the standards apply equally?
You mentioned Twitter, being able to survive without Twitter. A big issue at the moment that Trump is planning an executive order on right as we speak is social media censorship. So do you have any thoughts on that? Is it something you've ever experienced with YouTube or in any of your other social media platforms?
Yeah, I've definitely experienced some censorship, but I'm very divided on the issue because I know how social media platforms operate as a business, and I do know the inner workings of social media. So there are multiple different types of bans. There is one, the selected ban, where they specifically target you, the higher ups, and they just erase you from the platform. Then there is those bans just from mass reportings, triggers the automated system. So if you're making controversial tweets and people are reporting you because they don't like you, it triggers the automated system, and you could get blocked in the algorithm because so many people are reporting you. The social media's goals, I mean, obviously in the social medias, the companies, they always have a left-wing bias. That goes without saying. But their main job is to protect their advertisers. And unfortunately, the left-wing mob controls all those boycotts. So whenever the adpocalypse happened, it came from the left. Whenever any of those adpocalypses came, they always came from the left. It's because they want to shoot, they're threatening the money of the platforms in order to do something. So they got billions of dollars in advertising pulled off of YouTube, hundreds of millions, I think. And it forced YouTube to say, hey, we gotta downvote this type of content. We gotta censor this type of content because we want our advertisers to stay. It forces them into that position because the left-wing mobs, where if a Coca-Cola ad shows up on this video, they're gonna do massive boycotts against Coca-Cola. So it forces YouTube to limit the reach of your video because they need to sell their ad supply. They don't want this video to cause another adpocalypse. But also, it's the left-wing bias behind there that's, there's a lot of factors that go into it that you need to understand. Where I think is, if social medias were forced to give us the same algorithmic reach and not ban us, Will it disrupt their business model due to these mass boycotts? That's a serious question you got to raise. Or because we're legally they would be legally obligated to keep us on the platform and put us into the algorithm. That could be their excuse. It's like, hey, we can't do anything about it. You got to put your ads on this.
Right. There's no point boycotting a company if you can't change their decision.
So it could go two ways, but at the same time there is that aspect of freedom of speech. You know, these are communication forms. They're messengers. It's almost like sending a text message on a lot of these apps. I had lost a lot of communications with people because they got banned off their platform. So, I mean, they don't exist anymore because I have no way of contacting them. So there are also communication platforms. They're also a platform they're a freedom of speech platform. You know, you're trying to say what you want to say and you're banned from it. But to me, I'm so divided on the issue because I just understand the full scope of things.
But also, like, as a online, you know, your YouTube channel is your business. So if a landlord of a commercial property wants to evict their tenant, they have to go to the court and get a court order in order to make that eviction. Whereas in your case, you have a YouTube channel that's probably worth more than many physical properties, but YouTube can get rid of that at any point without any kind of due process. Doesn't that worry you as sort of an online businessman?
Yeah, no, that completely worries me. I mean, we've seen it happen to tons of YouTubers where they just lose their channel overnight. I mean, they can do it with me as well. They can just say, hey, you're running for Congress, we don't like you, we're just going to delete your channel. I try to keep my pages that are making me my bread and butter less political as possible because I'm trying to keep it separate. This is my entertainment page. Go here for pranks. You can go here for politics. So I try to keep that separation. And you did make that is a really good point where, you know, there are laws to evict a tenant, but not really laws to get someone deleted off a platform.
Is that something you would consider looking into if you were elected to Congress?
Yeah, I mean, that's very interesting. I'll probably want to look into that because that interests me. I never thought about it in that way.
Tell me about your primary opponent, Nicole Maliotakis.
So, yeah, Nicole Maliotakis, she ran for mayor, got obliterated against de Blasio, which is a difficult feat considering how unfavorable he is. But Nicole is a never-Trumper. She's flip-flopped on the abortion issue a few times, to my knowledge. She supports sanctuary cities, and she supported one of the most restrictive gun legislations in the state, in the country. So she is a rhino, never Trumper. Don't know what she's doing running on the Republican ticket. Don't know what she's doing running in Staten Island, the only district that voted for Trump out of all of New York City. Don't know what she's doing. It seems like just a power play or a power grab or a money grab. I don't know what her business is. But now she's trying to pretend like she's pro-Trump. She said in an interview that she should have wrote in Mark Rubio. She was in Mark Rubio's camp. When she was asked, what were the good things that Trump's done? She goes, I don't know. I can't tell you anything good that he's done. So now she's going to try to play it off that she's pro-Trump because she needs the voters. She's the Hillary Clinton of the Republican Party. Flip-flops on issues, is fake, and her videos are just as cringy as Hillary Clinton. You know that Hillary Clinton video? She's like, just here in Cedar Rapids, and she's like drinking a beer or whatever, just cringy. That's like every Nicole Maliotakis video.
So your opponent would say you don't have any political experience, and she does. How do you respond to that?
Well, her experience is not good experience. It represents how she would govern, how she would lead, and very poorly. She might as well just be running on the Democrat ticket because she doesn't represent anything Republican or anything that Staten Islanders want. So when I look at a politician, the reason why I was such in the Trump camp is nowadays we want outsiders. We don't want people that are built into this political hierarchy throne that are only in there because they know people. I want to vote for somebody who's coming from the ground up, at least in the political world, because they don't have that skewed sense of reality as a politician. So I want to vote for someone who's more in tune to the base, and I also want to vote for someone who knows how to make a deal. Trump knows how to make a deal. As we can see, the way he's been leading this country, he's just making good deals after good deals after good deals. Whereas before that, you had Obama. And what was his experience in deal making before he became president? Was he making billion-dollar deals in international trade before he became president? No, Trump has. So someone like me, comparing to that, I've been making deals 6-figure deals, 7-figure deals since I was 18 years old working in the industry that I've been working in. So if you want to do comparatively, I know how to go in there, I know how to negotiate, I know how to leverage. That's what politics comes down to, is can you make a good deal? Can you work something out? And all these politicians that are coming in, AOC is a bartender. What's her experience in making deals? Maybe she can make a good martini and get someone drunk. I don't know. But all these other politicians that are coming in, a lot of them are losers. Like, look at Eric Swalwell. He was running for president. I'm looking at this guy. I'm like, this guy's an absolute loser. How is he even elected any official? And you see a lot of politicians like that. These people are losers. And I see Trump. I'm like, this guy's a winner. I'd rather vote for a winner.
Yeah, you mentioned the political class, and you also lived in LA for a while. There's a growing divide, isn't there, between the cities and the rest of the country. Is that something you've seen, first growing up in Staten Island and moving to LA?
Yeah, so I was just thinking about it recently. And I was thinking about how selfish LA people are and self-absorbed they are. I mean, many people in all these democratic cities. And they'll vote in their own personal interests on what affects them directly versus what affects them indirectly, which is a direct effect. So they'll vote for free this and free that, and they'll harm farmers in the process. They'll harm the people that are putting food on their table at a cheap cost. They'll harm people who are giving their electricity and their water affordably because they're voting for their own personal interests.
Immigration too, do you think that falls under it?
Yeah, immigration too. People, they don't think. They only think for themselves. They don't have the foresight to think, hey, if I vote for this will help the farmers out. This will help businesses out. I'll get my stuff for cheaper. I can live a better life because I'm voting to help the people who keep this city intact and functional. Because what keeps the city functioning is usually coming from just outside the city. Stuff going into the city, keeping it alive and thriving.
From the red states.
Yeah. And they'll vote against those interests, raising their costs, raising their living expenses, raising their food prices, raising the cost for anyone to run a business, because they're being selfish and they're thinking about themselves.
Do you think there's a future for the Republican Party if unchecked immigration continues, or if social media censorship continues? Either one of those.
I think when it comes to social media censorship, I think the more the left keeps pushing back on us, the more it lends credibility to our voice. So I feel like in many ways they're shooting themselves in the foot, these social medias, because eventually an alternative site will eventually rise up. It's supply and demand. That's why Fox News is the #1 news station, because they're the only Republican news site out there. So supply and demand. You know, your guys' website does very well too because of supply and demand. That's why the right does so well on alternative media, is because that is our platform. We need to go and do research to find people who agree with us. Meanwhile, the left just needs to turn on any channel on TV, and they see everyone that agrees with them. So we're ahead of the curve because they tried to push us out so much that we're already dominating on the new medium and the new forms because they pushed us out of the old forms. And the more they censor, the more it hurts them as a business, because that's their viewer base. I mean, Facebook doesn't want to admit it, and they don't like this, but their most viewed pages and articles and profiles on that platform are usually right-leaning, and they don't like that. They don't like having a massive crowd of people of a certain side on their platform, and it's only going to hurt them in the long run. When it comes to immigration, obviously importing a massive influx of people who want to live on a welfare system is going to greatly affect the voting process. I would be okay if there was mass immigration if we didn't have such a huge welfare system. If statistically they weren't going to bring in crime. But what's coming in, they're bringing in crime. You could predict that almost probably 100% of them are going to end up voting Democrat if they're coming here illegally. That's what the Democrats see. They're seeing an influx of future potential voters. And what it used to be is back in the day when immigrants used to come here in the early 1900s, people were coming here and they were looking at the Statue of Liberty. They were looking at it as a land of freedom and opportunity. And they wanted to come here and they wanted to work for themselves. They wanted to get themselves out of their socialist dictatorships that they were coming from. They wanted to come here and live free and get that opportunity to just work for themselves and work hard. That's the old immigration. That's how people were coming here. Now people are coming here illegally because obviously they still do want a better life, and they're still going to get a better life. But they're not coming here with that mindset. They're coming here and they're draining from our system. They're draining from a country that's already filled with a lot of people. We may not need this many more people. Back in the early 1900s, we needed more people. We don't need as many people as we did back then. So our economy can't support a massive influx into this welfare state that's constantly being pushed in by the millions. It's not going to be sustainable.
On top of the motivations of the immigrants, you have the motivations of the elites who are pushing for more immigration. They want cheap labor, for example. Do you think there's a class warfare element to this?
It's contradictory to everything that the Democrats want. The Democrats want to raise minimum wage, but they're importing a large influx of illegal citizens who won't work for the minimum wage, driving the market price of that particular piece of labor down. So they're driving the labor prices down while trying to artificially raise the prices of labor. Cut down on illegal immigration, and the prices of supply and demand will just rise naturally, and it will get to a balancing point level where you don't need to forcibly pay people $15 an hour, where they might just get $15 an hour because there's a limit to the supply of work to do that particular piece of labor.
Do you think Trump's going to win in 2020?
Yeah, I think he's going to win in a landslide. It's just all these jokes are totally... he's running against jokes. Yeah, and Andrew Yang never fooled me. I feel like he got a lot of the Trump base. I don't know how people can go from being MAGA, Trump, freedom all the way to UBI, which is edging towards communism. I don't know how people can go so quickly from one extreme to the other. And I think he just came out today saying Trump's a white supremacist. I think he said something like that. So I'm like, I knew it. This guy is just as loony as all the other Dems. And I never seen anybody actually fully challenge him on any of his UBI plans. Because obviously he's meeting with other Democrats, and they don't want to... Democrats are going to probably push for UBI if it looks popular at the time. So they don't want to shoot down the logistic fallacies about UBI because they might want to get on board with it. And he's never really been challenged by any hardcore Republican. I mean, I know he was on Ben Shapiro. I watched that. I didn't see much challenging. It was more of a conversation, which is what the show was. It wasn't a debate. So, I mean, I would have loved to see Yang get really hardcore reamed on his UBI plan, but no one's done it before.
So in terms of like Trump's comedic ability, like his lack of political correctness, his ability to sort of like loosen up a room, do you identify with that yourself?
Yeah, because I mean, as I was saying earlier, that's like the Staten Island attitude. We just want to say it how it is. We don't... I feel like the old way of political people are very stiff in a room, being careful what they're saying. They need to act a certain way. And then Trump comes in and he's just like, hey, this, hey, that, whatever. And it does loosen up a room because people feel comfortable. They feel relieved. They don't feel like a stiff in a suit anymore. They feel like, oh, we can relax and talk. And
so as a YouTuber, you probably have a connection to some of the younger right-wingers. Do you think that some of the mainstream GOP messaging is a little dated? Do you think it's getting through to younger Trump supporters?
I think a lot of their messaging is very dated. Part of my job is I advise a lot of companies on their own social media and their own marketing. And I went through a lot of the GOP stuff, and a lot of it is kind of embarrassing and kind of cringy. I see some people coming in trying to upgrade it a little bit. I see Dan Crenshaw trying, but I'm just noticing so many cringy and errors in his way of doing things because, they're not social media people. They're coming into this, and this is new to them. It's not new to me. What I want to do is I want to come in and say, hey, Dan, you're doing a good job with this, but this is how you can make it better. It's not quite there, but you're getting there. And I want to come in and just upgrade everybody's performance. This is how you got to do the messaging. This is how you got to format your videos. This is how you got to promote. This is how you got to do your tags. Simple things.
What about some of the positions, like, for example, recently blaming video games for mass shooting?
Yeah, that's just ridiculous. I mean, I hate seeing right-wing politicians coming out saying, oh, it's video games. No one wins in that case. You're going to make yourself look stupid. You're going to make the party look stupid. You're doing no service. It's something I think a majority of the population can say, yeah, that's stupid. That's something a lot of people on the left and the right agree with is blaming video games is stupid.